As the shadow ants swarmed along the walls, their eerie battle cry echoed through the air, casting a heavy sense of dread over the hunters of the Night Guild. Fear crept into their hearts, some murmuring doubts and whispering about retreat. They worried that these terrifying creatures might see them as enemies too. Yuntai, visibly tense, turned to Zhongsu for direction. Zhongsu, though anxious, understood that turning back wasn't an option. Outside, a crowd of reporters waited, ready to pounce on any sign of weakness. They couldn't afford to abandon the raid out of fear. With renewed resolve, Zhongsu tried to rally the team. But just as he was finding his voice, Baru, the towering monstrous ant, stepped forward. Zhongsu's confidence crumbled in an instant. He stammered, trying to be polite, but Baru didn't respond. The creature simply stared, unblinking. Zhongsu, flustered, tried again, more deferential this time, but before he could finish, Baru vanished with a sound like a muted gunshot. Zhongsu blinked, confused, scanning the area. Moments later, Baru reappeared, flinging something toward the group. Without a word, he issued a command, and the shadow ants shifted into precise formation, ready to advance. As the team stared in stunned silence, Yuntai leaned in, concerned. "Are you okay? Is it really safe to let them lead?" Zhongsu, still reeling from Baru's sudden movements, managed a shaky nod. I think we're fine." Then someone pointed at what Baru had thrown. It was the head of a death knight, one of the raid's most dangerous monsters. Zhongsu could hardly believe it. In one swift move, Baru had decapitated a foe that could have wiped out their team. The sight of the Death Knight's severed head filled Zhongsu with awe, and something sharper, ambition. A sly smile tugged at his lips as the realization set in. Baru had obliterated one of the strongest monsters in the dungeon in mere seconds. The shadow ants weren't just powerful, they were monstrous in the best possible way. Zhongsu couldn't help but think about the value of the magic stones that such high-ranking monsters would drop. His fingers itched with anticipation as he examined the head, already calculating their potential profit. While he was still marveling at the trophy, the rest of the Night Guild had begun to move, following Baru and the disciplined ranks of shadow ants. "Zhongsu!" Yuntai called out, waving. "Come on!" Snapping out of his thoughts, Zhongsu hurried to rejoin them. With Baru in the lead, the group advanced through the dungeon, tearing through the undead like a scythe through wheat. Corpses littered the path they left behind, a testament to Baru's overwhelming power. Among the carnage, Yarim spotted something valuable, a rare vampire corpse, nearly intact. She darted forward, yanking the body away just as a shadow ant was about to devour it. "Hey, back off, you oversized bug," she scolded, frustration bubbling in her voice. "Do you even know how much this is worth?" But the ant ignored her. With a low hiss, it snatched the vampire back and devoured it whole. "Are you serious?" Yarim groaned, lunging in again to stop it, but too late. The ant lashed out with its claw, slicing her shoulder and knocking her to the ground. Blood welled from the wound as she cried out. The ant loomed over her, ready to strike again, until a blur of movement silenced the air. Baru appeared in a flash, his presence alone sending the shadow ant into a trembling retreat. His piercing gaze froze the creature mid-motion. Without a word, Baru stepped forward and gently touched Yarim's wound. A wave of healing magic flowed through her, sealing the gash in seconds. Yarim stared in disbelief. Thank you," she muttered, awed. She had seen healing magic before, but this was on another level. How is a summon this much better than me at healing? Meanwhile, the Knights Guild strike squad pressed forward, trailing the shadow ants to the dungeon's final chamber. The air grew cold, heavy with malice. At the entrance to the boss's lair, they stopped dead in their tracks. There, cloaked in swirling black magic, stood the Arch-Lich, towering, skeletal, and malevolent. Around it stood several Death Knights, their eyes glowing with unholy fire. Panic rippled through the group. No one had expected this. "That's an Arch-Lich," someone whispered, their voice barely audible. Jong-su's breath caught in his throat. He had read the reports. Archliches weren't just powerful. They were cataclysms. The Gold Dragon Guild had been wiped out by one, triggering a dungeon break so massive that only Liu Zhigang's intervention had prevented a disaster. And now here they were, an A-rank strike team, face to face with one. Yuntai stepped closer to Jong-su, voice low. "What do we do?" But before Jong-su could answer, another presence made itself known. Behind them, the hunters turned and their blood ran cold. Another threat was approaching. A thunderous clatter echoed through the dungeon corridor as a new horde of Death Knights surged toward them. Jong-su's eyes widened in horror. "They're coming back!" he shouted. The realization hit him like a hammer. Every undead creature the shadow ants hadn't consumed had resurrected. "Block the entrance," he ordered. Without hesitation, Yerem stepped forward, summoning her skill. "Holy wall!" she cried out, and a radiant barrier sprang to life, sealing the doorway just as the first wave of undead slammed into it. The impact sent shudders through the ground, and cracks of stress began to flicker across the barrier. Jong-su wiped the sweat from his brow. "This is bad. Without Hunter Sung, we might not make it out of here." Yareem, straining under the pressure of her magic, glanced back at him, her voice tight. "This wall, it won't hold more than 5 minutes." Just as panic began to claw at the edges of the hunters' minds, Beru stepped forward. The Archlich, standing at the heart of the lair, recoiled in alarm. It recognized them, the shadow ants. Its hollow eyes widened and its voice trembled with disbelief. "Why is the monarch's army attacking me?" Fear crept into the Archlich's voice as Beru advanced, silent and unflinching. Desperate, the Lich summoned a dozen Death Knights, surrounding the shadow ants like a wall of steel and bone. But Beru didn't falter. His mandibles clicked open, claws extending, and he spoke with a voice like thunder. "We were chosen by the king. You were not." The Arch-Lich trembled with rage and disbelief. "I will speak to the king myself." It never got the chance. Beru vanished, and then reappeared inches from the Arch-Lich's face. The Lich flinched too late. In a flash, Beru drove his clawed hand into the creature's chest, grabbing the glowing pendant that pulsed with necrotic power, its phylactery, the source of its undeath. With the pendant gripped in his claw and bloodless ichor leaking from its mouth, the Arch-Lich shook its head in mute desperation. It let out a screech of denial, but Beru, unmoved, crushed the pendant in his palm. The sound was like shattering glass, followed by utter silence. The Arch-Lich began to disintegrate, its form unraveling into dust and shadow. Around the lair, the summoned Death Knights followed suit, vanishing one by one as their master perished. In mere seconds, the tide of death that had threatened to overwhelm the hunters was gone. The battlefield fell silent. The Night Guild stood frozen, stunned by what they had just witnessed. The mighty Arch-Lich, vanquished with a single blow. Dozens of elite undead, erased in an instant. Jong-su stared at Beru in awe, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think he was that strong." Yuntai, eyes wide, gave a low whistle as he glanced around at the remains, or lack thereof. With soldiers like that, Hunter Sung doesn't even need to step into a dungeon. And no one dared to disagree. Jong-su couldn't stop replaying what he had just witnessed. With soldiers like Beru, Hunter Sung Jin Wu could clear dungeons without lifting a finger, just by sending in his summons. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Still, Jong-su knew there were limits. He probably can't control all of them at once without draining his mana, he reasoned. But even half? Half of that army would rival the strength of an entire top-tier guild. Beside him, Yuntai leaned in, speaking quickly. "Then what are we waiting for? We should try to bring him into the Night Guild." Jong-su shook his head immediately. "Not acquisition. Alliance," he corrected firmly. His eyes lit up as the idea took shape in his mind. An alliance between Hunter Sung's newly founded guild and the Night Guild, one of the country's 5 major powerhouses. The thought alone carried weight. It had a nice ring to it. Yuntae chuckled, half joking. Think he even needs us after what we just saw? Jong-soo didn't laugh. Instead, he spoke with conviction. Even Hunter Sung isn't above the rules. A raid needs a minimum number of hunters, no exceptions. He might be able to solo an entire dungeon, but without the numbers, he can't even enter legally. Yuntae paused, nodding slowly as understanding dawned. So we provide the numbers, and he brings the power. Exactly. It's a win-win. Jong-soo laughed, clearly pleased with the strategy. Yuntae, still grinning, added, Feels like we're riding his coattails. We're not, Jong-soo replied with a smirk. We're just smart enough to make the right connections. There was determination in Jong-soo's expression now, clear and sharp. He had made up his mind. This alliance could change everything for the Night Guild. Meanwhile, back at the school, chaos had taken hold. A huge crowd had gathered, drawn by the scale and mystery of the incident. Parents, reporters, and frightened citizens surged toward the gates, shouting in panic and demanding answers. Some cried out for their children, others pushed forward to get a glimpse of the aftermath. Police and members of the Hunters Association were struggling to contain them, forming a barricade to prevent the crowd from flooding the grounds. Then, cutting through the noise like a blade, a voice rang out, authoritative, calm, unmistakable. "Make way," the voice commanded. Heads turned. Sung Jin Wu had arrived. Jin Wu sat quietly in the back of the slowly moving car, the atmosphere tense with unspoken weight. President Go, seated beside him, broke the silence with a grim update. 213 students made it out safely, he began. 10 more were rescued from inside. But the rest, he didn't need to finish. The weight in his voice said enough. He sighed, remorse heavy in his tone. Perhaps we should have seen it coming. As the car rolled through Seoul's tense streets, President Go handed Jin Wu a tablet, displaying data that painted a troubling picture, a sharp rise in gate appearances across the city over the last 6 months. But it wasn't just Seoul. Similar spikes were occurring all over the world. Alongside the increase in gates, more people were awakening as hunters. It was as if the world was trying to maintain equilibrium, matching danger with power. Jin Wu stared at the numbers. Something's changing. President Go's voice softened. That's why I wanted to talk to you. Other nations, Japan, the US, China, Russia, they all want to meet you. Some have sent official requests, others, not so official. He reassured Jin Wu that the Hunters Association had protected his personal information. What happened next was up to him. But then came the real concern. If you leave Korea, President Go said, I'm not sure we'll be able to handle what's coming. As the car pulled up to the hospital where Jin Wu's sister had been taken, President Go turned to him, eyes sincere. We'll do whatever it takes to support you. We've already lost 3 of our 10 S-rank hunters. 2 to monsters. 1 was bought by America. He paused. We can't afford to lose another. Jin Wu nodded, thinking deeply. Then, without preamble, he made a request that caught the president off guard. Allow me to enter high-ranking gates alone. Bypass the minimum party requirement. Go blinked. That law existed to prevent unnecessary deaths. Solo raids were suicide missions. But suddenly, it clicked. That's why you started your own guild. Jin Wu confirmed it with a glance. Am I asking for too much? Go hesitated, then smiled wryly. For you? Not impossible. I'll see what I can do. Meanwhile, cameras clicked furiously across town as a photo shoot wrapped up. The photographer lowered his camera, grinning. That was perfect, Soo-yeon. The A-rank hunter and part-time model laughed brightly. Glad to hear it. Her phone buzzed. It was Jin-ho. Hey, he said, chipper as always. Want to join my new guild? I promise you won't have to do any actual work. Soo-yeon raised a brow. Another guild pitch? Shouldn't I stay with dads instead? Come on, Jin-hee's coming back, and we still need 1 more founding member. She laughed, skeptical. You sure you're not getting scammed by someone shady? You'll be shocked to hear who this shady guy is. Curious, she made her way to Jinho's office. The moment she stepped inside, her gaze locked on the tall, stoic man standing beside her cousin. Her breath caught. That's him. Sung Jin Wu turned as she openly stared. Jinho grinned. Soo-yeon, meet Hunter Sung Jin Wu. Jin Wu, this is my cousin, A-rank and family celebrity. Soo-yeon blinked, still stunned. You're really him? The guy who ghosted after crashing Lee Min-sung's press conference? Jinho chuckled. You're the real star here. But Soo-yeon couldn't hide her excitement. Jin Wu watched quietly. Considering the family dynamic, Jinho, a D-rank, Soo-yeon, an A-rank. He wondered if awakenings were partially hereditary. His father had been a hunter too. He turned to Soo-yeon. Did Jinho tell you everything? She nodded. About needing a founding member? Yeah. Jin Wu looked her in the eye. Joining us will cause a stir. You sure you're okay with that? Soo-yeon smirked. Anything's better than ending up stuck with Jin Sung. Jin Wu tilted his head. Jin Sung? Jinho coughed awkwardly. My older brother. Let's just say he's not well liked. Already famous for being difficult, Soo-yeon added dryly. As Jin Wu pondered that, Soo-yeon took a tentative step closer. Would it be weird, she asked, holding up her phone, if I asked for a selfie? Jin Wu blinked in surprise, but nodded. The moment she posted the photo, it exploded online. Fans, hunters, and even celebrities buzzing with excitement. Somewhere across the city, Cha Hai-in paused mid-scroll, eyes narrowing on the image. So, he's finally showing his face again. When Cha Hai-in saw the viral post, an uneasy feeling stirred within her. A tight ache settled in her chest, an emotion she couldn't name, yet couldn't ignore. Her fingers trembled slightly as she stared at the photo of Soo-yeon smiling beside Jin Wu. Jealousy? Regret? It was hard to say. But deep down, she knew. Her feelings for him were far more complicated than she let on. Across the city, Congressman Nam Jun-wook, a former chief prosecutor with a reputation for his bluntness, was fuming. Recognizing summoned creatures as official members of strike squads, he barked, "This is absurd." He slammed a hand down on the table at the Hunter Association's meeting room, glaring at the others. This regulation change passed the moment Sung Jin Wu founded his guild. It's blatant favoritism. The association exists to serve all hunters, not just worship one man. Go Gun-hee, the calm and composed president of the association, didn't flinch. You're right, he replied evenly. It is preferential treatment. A murmur of surprise passed through the room. Gun-hee let it hang in the air for a moment before posing a question that silenced the whispers. If you had the option, he asked, his voice measured, to send a squad of ordinary hunters into a high-level gate, or to send Hunter Sung Jin Wu alone, which would you choose? The silence that followed was deafening. Turning his gaze back to Nam, Gun-hee's tone sharpened. You recently moved into a high-rise near the Hunters Guild, didn't you? Property values there are nearly double those in neighboring districts. Why? Because people feel safe near Sung Jin Wu. Nam said nothing, his jaw tightening. Guilds from all over the world are trying to recruit him, Gun-hee continued. Japan, America, even Russia. If we keep tying his hands, do you really believe he'll stay in Korea out of goodwill alone? He let that sink in, then delivered the final blow. Don't make the same mistake we made with Hwang Dong-soo. If another S-rank gate opens here, who do you expect to save your lives? Meanwhile, Jin Wu stood before an A-rank gate, Jinho's first real taste of high-level raiding. The massive arch pulsed with ominous energy, towering so high that Jinho craned his neck just to see the top. Hard to believe, isn't it? Jin Wu said, amused. You should have seen the one at Gwangali Beach. Jinho gave a nervous laugh. Yeah, I think I would have fainted. On the other side of the police line, a swarm of reporters closed in, their cameras flashing as they called out questions. Hunter Sung, what can you tell us about Ajin Guild's first raid? Is it true your guildmate Soo-yeon is your... Jin Wu sighed as the questions kept coming, none of them about the dungeon itself. He caught sight of Chief Wu Jincheol standing nearby and immediately turned toward him. How did this many reporters even know where we'd be? Jincheol shrugged. We can guard your personal data, but we can't hide the gates themselves. People track the magic surges. And that selfie? It didn't help. Jin Wu blinked, then gave a sheepish smile. Right. Social media. Inside the gate, Jinho began panicking again. We really should have brought a hauling or mining team. There's no way I can manage all this on my own. Jin Wu reassured him with a confident smirk. Don't worry about it. He raised his hand. From the shadows around him, dozens of figures began to rise. My soldiers will take care of everything. The pressure in the air shifted the moment Jin Wu summoned his shadow soldiers. Their presence alone was enough to make Wu Jincheol pause. Each one radiated strength equivalent to at least a B-rank hunter, with a few that could easily rival A-rank elites. Watching them pass the safety inspection with ease, Jincheol couldn't help but note how misguided the public outrage over Jin Wu's special treatment truly was. These weren't ordinary summons. They were a legion of power, precision, and discipline. With the team cleared for entry, Jincheol gave the signal to begin. But just as they were about to step into the gate, he surprised everyone by slipping off his coat. Beneath it, he wore a full set of sleek, enchanted armor, intricately designed for both flexibility and defense. Jin Wu and Jinho exchanged surprised glances. I'll be joining you, Jincheol said, adjusting his gauntlets. Chairman Go asked me to oversee the raid for safety evaluation, just for today. Jin Wu studied him carefully. Are you sure you're ready for this? Minutes later, Jincheol found himself questioning that readiness. What he witnessed inside the A-rank gate went beyond anything he'd imagined. An enormous naga, a serpentine monster of elite rank, screamed as Jin Wu's shadow soldiers swarmed it. Dozens of blades tore into its body, merciless and methodical. On the other side of the field, the shadow ants were feasting on the carcasses of fallen beasts, their behavior primal and unsettling. Iron, the towering knight, swung his massive axe with brutal efficiency, cleaving through enemies like they were made of paper. Another beast-like soldier, Tank, lunged forward, his massive claws ripping monsters apart in seconds. The High Orcs, vicious and disciplined, struck down foes with bone-crushing power, slicing deep with curved blades, leaving nothing but ruin in their path. Sweat rolled down Jincheol's face. These weren't just summons. They were a nightmare army. Even the most experienced hunters he knew would hesitate to face foes like this. Yet Jin Wu's shadows moved with coordinated precision. And worse, they didn't stay down. Every fallen soldier rose again, regenerated and ready to continue the slaughter. They were relentless. Then, Igris stepped into view. He stood out even among the elites, wielding the demon monarch's sword with deadly elegance. Every swing of his blade unleashed bolts of lightning, crackling with fused fire and water magic. The sheer force of his attacks shattered enemies instantly, his movements faster than the eye could follow. Jincheol, a former hunter himself, stared in disbelief. Could I even survive one exchange with that? He wondered. Is he stronger than an A rank? As the slaughter continued, Jin Wu's voice rang out. That's enough. The shadow ants stopped mid-bite, still gnawing at monster corpses. Jin Wu frowned, irritation flashing across his face. He marched toward the nearest ant and gave it a firm kick. Don't waste the corpses, he said coldly. They're valuable. He redirected the army's focus, ordering the others to begin mining mana crystals from the dungeon walls. Efficiency was key, and Jin Wu ensured every part of the raid served a purpose. Jincheol stood frozen, still absorbing everything. Now he understood why Chairman Go had insisted he come. Jin Wu wasn't just capable of clearing an A-rank dungeon. He could do it alone, retrieve the bodies, extract the resources, and leave with everything of value, all without a single other hunter lifting a finger. Just then, the dungeon boss appeared, a towering monster clad in sea-worn armor, wielding twin tridents. Its presence was suffocating, the air vibrating with menace as it advanced toward Jin Wu and Jin Chol. Unfazed, Jin Wu raised his hand calmly. "To those still working, stay," he said. "The rest of you, you're dismissed." And just like that, the battlefield fell still. Only those needed for the final fight remained. As most of the shadows vanished into the darkness from which they came, Chief Wu Jinchul remained behind, silently puzzled. Why would Jin Wu send away his entire army when they could easily overwhelm the dungeon boss on their own? The decision didn't seem strategic, at least not at first glance, but Jin Wu had his reasons. He knew that relying too heavily on his shadows might dull his edge. His power as a monarch was immense, but he didn't want it to make him complacent. "I need to stay sharp," he reminded himself. There would come a day when he'd face an enemy even his shadows couldn't defeat, and when that day came, he would need to be at his absolute best. With a focused expression, Jin Wu summoned the demon monarch's dagger. Then, with a thunderous stomp, he cracked the stone floor beneath him, his signal that the battle was about to begin. The dungeon boss responded immediately. A towering magic beast, it let out a guttural roar and swung both its tridents with a force that could flatten buildings. But its attack met only empty air. Jin Wu had already moved, faster than sight, faster than thought. In a blur, he appeared before the creature. One clean, fluid motion later, the beast's head was cleaved in two. Its body collapsed in a heap, the echo of its fall reverberating through the chamber. A moment of silence followed. Then a familiar chime. A system notification flickered before Jin Wu's eyes. Dungeon boss defeated. And then another. He had leveled up. Landing smoothly, Jin Wu turned, only to be greeted by a cascade of pop-ups. The familiar melody of achievement alerts echoed in his mind. One after another, they poured in. He had reached level 101, and with it, a major breakthrough. Every one of his job-exclusive skills had advanced. Shadow extraction, shadow storage, monarch's domain, shadow exchange. Each had grown stronger. Jin Wu's eyes widened as he read the details. Shadow exchange, in particular, now had a reduced cooldown, an hour shorter. He felt a surge of hope. If this trend continued, he could soon come and go from his shadow network freely, ensuring his mother and sister were always safe, no matter where he was. While Jin Wu absorbed this information, Jin Chol remained rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by what he'd just witnessed. The Naga had been no ordinary monster. Its scales were among the hardest known, often used to forge high-grade defensive gear. Yet Jin Wu had sliced through it effortlessly, as if its armor were paper. The combination of power and technique left the veteran hunter speechless. Then, a voice rang out behind him, firm and commanding. "Arise!" Jin Wu's hand stretched toward the Naga's fallen form. From beneath the corpse, wisps of shadow twisted and clawed their way up, forming dark hands that grasped the lifeless body. In a matter of moments, the creature rose once more, its eyes glowing with a dark flame. The Naga had been reborn, not as a beast, but as Jin Wu's newest shadow soldier. A system alert confirmed, shadow extraction successful. Shadow level 13. Jin Wu studied the new summon. It was smaller now, having shed its original bulk, but the mana radiating from its core was immense. It stood on par with Tusk in rank, yet its starting level suggested it had retained much of its original strength. He smiled slightly, pleased with the result. Another powerful piece added to the board. Jin Wu studied the newly reborn shadow closely. It was smaller than it had been in life, but he suspected that, like Tusk, it might be capable of growing in size through the use of magic. Perhaps this was merely its base form. Regardless, its presence radiated power, and Jin Wu was pleased to add it to his ever-expanding army. A familiar system notification appeared, prompting him to assign a name to the new soldier. After a brief pause, Jin Wu typed in a name that came naturally to him, Jima. With that, the shadow beast stood fully acknowledged, and Jin Wu felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. His army was becoming a force unlike anything the world had seen. Standing a few steps back, Jin Ho watched in silent amazement. The fact that Jin Wu could subjugate such a powerful creature and bend it to his will left him speechless. To Jin Ho, Jin Wu had long since surpassed the realm of what a normal hunter could be. Still in awe, Jin Ho reminded him, "Hyung, maybe we should head out?" Jin Wu nodded, but cast one last glance at the massive Naga carcass still lying in the dungeon. It would be a waste to leave it behind. Just as he pondered what to do, a commotion erupted outside the gate. Reporters who had been camped near the dungeon perimeter were jolted by a deep rumble that shook the earth beneath them. Their jaws dropped as something titanic emerged from the shadows. A towering beast with a horned head and immense tusks. It was Tusk, Jin Wu's mighty summon, now shouldering the enormous Naga corpse like it weighed nothing. For a moment, panic swept through the crowd. But then, realization dawned. This was part of the Arjun Guild's raid. No, it was the raid. The fear gave way to wild excitement. Camera shutters clicked like machine guns as reporters scrambled to capture every second of the surreal scene. Jin Ho glanced at Jin Wu. "Hyung, I think we might have overdone it." Jin Wu gave a nonchalant shrug, watching the media frenzy with calm detachment. Attention was inevitable, especially now. This first raid had left a mark, and not just inside the dungeon. Off to the side, Chief Wu Jinchul stood silent. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot, and his posture slumped. The sheer brutality and raw power he had witnessed still haunted him. Monsters devouring each other alive, shadow beasts regenerating mid-battle, Jin Wu carving through an A-rank boss like it was nothing. It had left a deeper scar than he wanted to admit. Later, when Jin Cheol arrived at the Hunter Association, his footsteps were slow, weighed down by exhaustion and disbelief. Inside, he found Chairman Go Gun-hee waiting. Without preamble, Jin Cheol began to speak, recounting every detail of the raid, the blood, the shadows, the impossible might of Jin Wu's army. His voice wavered at times, but he pushed through, trying to remain composed. Go Gun-hee listened carefully, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. When Jin Cheol finished, the chairman let out a long, heavy sigh. He had seen countless raids in his time and heard tales of horrors most men couldn't imagine. And Jim Chul, a seasoned hunter himself, had weathered them all without flinching. But this was different. Even a man like Wu Jincheol had been shaken to the core, and that, more than anything, told Go Gun-hee just how much the world had changed. His hands clasped behind his back, he stared out at the city beyond. The sky was clear, but his thoughts were storming. The report was more than just surprising. It was transformative. Sung Jin Wu hadn't merely cleared an A-rank gate. He had obliterated everything inside, harvested the mana crystals, collected the monster corpses, and summoned a new shadow soldier, all without aid. No support squad, no backup plan. Just him and his army of shadows. Calling him a one-man assault squad no longer did justice to the truth. A slow, knowing smile crept across Go Gun-hee's face. Sung Jin Wu wasn't just a powerful hunter. He was a guild. A self-contained, unstoppable force that defied conventional definitions. He was changing the landscape, not just of Korea, but of the entire world.